Η Κυπριακή Ομοσπονδία Γυναικών Επιχειρηματιών Επαγγελματιών ΚΟΓΕ οργανώνει για τρίτη συνεχή χρονιά το Μεσογειακό Συμπόσιο. Γυναίκες που ξεχώρισαν για το έργο τους, απαντούν στις προκλήσεις του σήμερα, συζητούν και μοιράζονται απόψεις και εμπειρίες για τη στήριξη, την ενδυνάμωση και την περαιτέρω ανάπτυξη της γυναικείας επιχειρηματικότητας στην περιοχή μας. Η εκδήλωση οργανώνεται διαδικτυακά στις 21 Νοεμβρίου 2020. Μαζί μπορούμε να πετύχουμε περισσότερα.
Dear BPW sisters, the global socioeconomic shock is affecting women more negatively than men and threatening us to endure the hard-won progress toward gender parity in the economy and in the labor market. We need a different economy that drives sustainable jobs, green growth and a different way of life in the face of pandemic that has almost completely brought our lifestyles to a halt. The post-coronavirus economic system must entail an ecologically sustainable mode of consumption and production capable of generating social justice. The equal contribution of women and men in this process of profound economic and social transformation is critical. More than ever, it has generated an economic disruption of enormous proportions that will continue into the future, creating risk and volatility and multiple political, social and geopolitical fronts. And in addition, it has increased concerns about the environment and the extension of the reach of technology in our lives. Now, leaders have an unique opportunity to seize these moments to implement sensible and innovative policies and strategies to close these gaps. And it's in your hands to be part of this movement. Gender-responsive budgeting will not only accelerate and strengthen our economic recovery, it will also accelerate us towards a more equitable and resilient world. We are quickly exhausting our list of excuses when it comes to achieving gender equity. Now that we are in the midst of this historical turning point, now is the time to unite us as a global community to close the gender gap once and for all, to establish a new, more inclusive world order, a new, more inclusive social contract. After COVID-19, there will be no more excuses. We have all the tools to make gender equality a reality in this life. How we will collect and use them? History will judge us, but let us work together for achieve a really generation equality. Thank you very much.
Dear President Mary, dear sisters, it was so hard for me to talk about my beloved country in 1 minute, while most of us are living minute by minute. We are not eating, not sleeping, not working. We no longer have medications and not even a young generation to make or be the change we are all seeking for the majority left. My country has a list of basic deprivations: no electricity, no water, no internet. With that being the case for as long as we can remember, the August 4 disaster came to put a crown of thorns on the head of our crisis. With this horrible situation that we are in, can we even talk about how to make a difference through leadership programs? Can we talk about supporting women? Can we talk about exchanging visits with leading organizations? Can we talk about advocacy, awareness, etc.? Yes, we can and we should. We should remain positive. Beirut will rise, and we will support one another no matter what. We are in process of empowering around 100 women to sow and raise their salaries. We are in the process of helping others in the agriculture field. That way, we can come back to our roots and be resilient just like our cedar and strong just like our Lebanon.
President Mary Papadopoulou, and BPW Cyprus members. Greetings to all from BPW Pula, Croatia, and my best regards as founder and chair of BPW Networking of Adriatic Ionian Region BPW Adrianet. On 2nd October this year, we had hybrid third forum BPW Adrianet. In addition to considering the examples of good practice in the implementation of women entrepreneurship projects through Adriatic Ionian region in COVID times, we presented a BPW web catalog of women entrepreneurs. This web catalog is available on the BPW HR website. I cordially invite you to join us to catalog. We are also grateful to take over your successful projects that we can implement in our environment. Thank you and much success in your symposium.
Buonasera a tutti. La FIDAPA BPW Italy, che io mi onoro di rappresentare, pone, per quanto riguarda gli argomenti scelti, pone l'accento su due tematiche. Una che riguarda la città, una smart city, però fatta a misura di donna, che tiene conto di tutte quelle che sono le esigenze della donna, la maternità, la sicurezza, quindi strade illuminate, strade che siano anche intestate alle donne, quindi una toponomastica al femminile, e luoghi che incentivino la comunicazione, l'amicizia e che tengano conto delle esigenze anche della maternità, la sicurezza dei luoghi, per cui si può tranquillamente passeggiare, camminare anche in piena notte. E in più il daycare, proprio abbracciando le teorie del paese nord Europa, quei daycare che sono necessari per dare tranquillità, serenità alle donne lavoratrici, che naturalmente sarebbero più presenti anche al lavoro e quindi inciderebbero economicamente sulla nazione in maniera, sul territorio in maniera minima. Grazie.
Dear Mary, President of BPW Cyprus, it is my pleasure to send you my warm regards and to all our sisters from BPW across the Mediterranean. Warm regards from Egypt. It is our pleasure to connect together, to cooperate, to have projects together, to help empowering women. I would like to invite you all to our conference in Egypt next year, inshallah. I hope to see you all in Egypt. Best wishes for all of you.
Dear President Mary and BPW sisters in Cyprus, first of all, we would like to congratulate you for this precious event, which brings us the opportunity to remember peace and solidarity are the only ways to survive. A disease made a huge difference in our lives. Resilience, agility, solidarity, communication are the post-truth skills of the world. A new world is being created. And we women, owning all of these skills, have to be more visible and active in political, social, and economic life. If we are determined to live in a peaceful world, we have to make more advocacy, more networking, more business with each other globally. Dear President Mary, thank you very much for this wonderful event, and we are pretty sure that this event will definitely help us accomplish this goal. Thank you.
Good morning, Cyprus. Good morning, BPW. I am really happy that we can participate in the forum, at least in this way. I believe that under these conditions, the role of the organization is ever more crucial. Now you can prove that you can help women's entrepreneurship become more flexible, and we should find the proper tools for that. Until now, you have managed to organize our forums online and continue to cooperate as we did. I recommend to reinforce our collaboration and the support not only to our members, but to promote our work more. And this should happen because the women's entrepreneurship around Europe, especially now, needs it a lot. Thank you very much for listening to me fully. Bye.
Dear friends in BPW, hi, I'm Ayelet Nachmias Verbin, former member of the Israeli Knesset and currently the Vice President of the Israeli Manufacturers Organization in Israel. It's great to be with you, even if it's not the same. And this is the opportunity to think about the future, about the new path that we need to draw, about the new roads that we need to pave. Because we know that in spite of the hardships that the pandemic has brought with it, there are a lot of new opportunities. Because if I'm speaking to you from my home and other friends are speaking to us from their homes, there is no doubt something that we can do because the world is changing and it's changing rapidly. The thing is to be there for the opportunities, especially when we speak about the Mediterranean. We know that there are new opportunities and not only hardships. There are new careers to be drawn and new places to go. And we need to be there and think about them in this conference and tomorrow. We need to make sure that we are a part of this change. Thank you.
Dear ladies, on behalf of Agnès Bricard, BPW France President, it's time to build together an inclusive and sustainable world. Let's transform the pandemic in an opportunity, thanks to numeric tools, to work together more closer and transform our amazing international network in an innovative, powerful, resilient instrument of advocacy. Each one of us is doing his best to innovate and sustain human rights. So let's valorize all our projects, all our talents, all our expertise. Thank you very much, Mary, to let this process possible and to inspire all of us. Thank you very much.
Just 2 minutes, dear President Mary and members of BPW Cyprus, to say thank you for your commitment. You know, often I say that I am proud as a regional coordinator of my BPW Europe, of my European presidents. I confirm it also in this occasion, because despite the COVID pandemic, you found the courage to organize, in any case, this event, even if in virtual way. Resilience is a magic word, the capacity to convert bad moments in opportunities. Now, with this webinar, you are showing that it is possible. Don't forget, we are rich in an incredible network of women that embraces the whole world, as we had recently the opportunity to see in the meeting dedicated to the International Day of the Girl Child, the world in my room. So don't forget that for us, everything is possible. It is possible to bring together many women from many countries. It is possible to debate about the most important values of our organization. And in your case, in this case, cooperation and teamwork in our action of business and professional women, it is a must. It is possible to spread awareness that women together can change the world. All the best to all of you, dear President Mary, for this third Mediterranean Forum. From my room, a big hug to all of you. Thank you.
My very dear BPW sisters attending the third Mediterranean Symposium. All my greetings from Egypt, all my greetings coming to you, and I would like really to thank President Mary Papadopoulos, the President of BPW Cyprus, for organizing such a great Symposium. Also to thank Regional Coordinator Pinella for her always her efforts in the European region. The Mediterranean is very important region linking Africa with Europe. Empowering women within the Mediterranean is a huge advocacy pillar of BPW International. This year, as we are celebrating 90th anniversary of our BPW International and remembering the long journey that our Dr. Lina Medicine Phillips, our founder, has established our great organization across the 100 countries, it is very important to understand that within the whole world and within our advocacy pillars of promoting women entrepreneurship, women access to market, women in digital economy, women equal pay, women on board, women empowerment principles, government and corporate procurement, and with also the sectorial advocacy pillars as by preventing violence against women, which really has been increasing during the lockdown of the COVID. It is very important to congratulate all of you, all our sisters across the world for the great activities, the great projects that you have already done during the COVID. It showed the real sisterhood, the real solidarity of our BPW International, the very important activities that we have done, which really contributed the COVID not to be a challenge, but to be an opportunity. And also, with reference to our BPW International theme, empowering women to realize the Sustainable Development Goals, all the 17 goals, starting with no poverty, no hunger, good education, health, and of course SDG number 5, which is gender equality and women empowerment. I am sure that all of us have been contributing to this global agenda and making sure that through this symposium you are covering many of our SDGs and advocacy pillars for empowering women within the Mediterranean region. Again, I thank you all, and I send you my message of greetings, wishing the great success for this great symposium. Thank you.
Dear BPW sisters and friends, welcome to the third BPW Mediterranean Symposium. It is a pleasure to host this regional event. I would like to thank BPW President Amani, our regional coordinator Pinella, and many regional presidents who share their perspectives with us today, and of course, our panelists. Our sisterhood is irreplaceable. We truly appreciate your support. Although circumstances have compelled us to meet only on screen, your presence here today demonstrates your commitment to help women entrepreneurs grow and succeed. And that is, after all, the purpose and the goal of the symposium. We joined forces to promote a new order that reflects the new economic reality and understanding of justice as we tackle the social remnants of the past. We will identify common challenges and touch our pain points, the invisible boundaries, the obstacles that frustrate women entrepreneurs and obstruct their progress, their advancement, and their prosperity. Make no mistake, we should not work towards going back to the pre-pandemic normal way of life and business. That normal was one where women were underfunded, underestimated, undervalued, and underpaid. A world in which 2.5 billion women and girls were affected by discriminatory laws and lack of legal protection, and 450 million women were living in poverty. And things are even worse now. We should look ahead and define our vision to the coming years, and even further, for the world we want the next generation of women, our daughters, to live in. The United Nations have referred to the 21st century as a century of women. It is a century that requires vision and the redefinition of the word success. We must reformulate the existing rules, We should conceive and develop world-changing ideas to see problems not as stop signs, but as guidelines to convert every struggle into strength. Our role, the role of women in society, should not be limited to human rights and social justice. The only way to face past and current challenges is by participating in the solutions. Only then do we have the right to intervene in society, the economy, and politics. It is a matter of participatory democracy. Gender inequality carries a cost. BPW sisters, we're here today to join forces and continue along the roadmap we outlined last year. Together, we will address the challenges we are facing in our individual countries. We will not lean back. We shall lean in, day by day, year on year. We need to master the great challenges of our time. We have to make sure that we do not betray the struggles of the women who paved the way for us and the future of those who are dependent on us. We cannot and we shall not let them down. This symposium will close today, but it will not end. We will carry the message home to our representatives and our societies. We will spread the word in our different spheres, in our places of work, in our schools, in our communities, across the region, and in all our languages to make sure that it is heard and understood. In our individual countries, we'll take action and demand commitments from our governments. We are on a clear path and we will not turn back. We have built bridges and opened the lines of communication. Through our close cooperation and collaboration, we will ultimately achieve the results we are aiming for. If we want to see the rainbow, we must accept the rain. What do we do makes a difference. But we have to decide what kind of difference we're going to make. We at BPW are committed to the issue of gender equality, of fair play, of empowerment. We are trying to create the world we want to live in. We don't only dream about it, we work for it. Change is possible. Change is happening. And I'm proud to be here today, knowing that we at BPW are all a part of this change. Now, I would like to give the floor to our moderator, my fellow BPW sister, Larissa Miller.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, distinguished guests and my fellow BPW sisters. Thank you, Mary Papadopoulos, for inviting me to moderate this extremely important panel today and for remaining steadfast in your conviction to hold this symposium in the face of the challenges that we're facing globally. As we all know, we can't go back to normal because normal was clearly our problem. We have an opportunity, ladies, to shape the future, identifying and filling fractures that we didn't even realize existed a year ago, but those fractures which will put us on a pathway to unimaginable success and solutions that will help us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. We can use innovation, technology, and most importantly, collaboration and sisterhood to set ourselves ahead of all of those who are also trying to find the solutions. Recovery can only happen with unity. And today we step forward into a future that we have the power to lead. We have the power to change and we have the power to shape. Together we can be the solution. Today I'm lucky to be joined by a remarkable panel of distinguished women and BPW sisters who will share strategies for recovery, resiliency, and growth. Ladies, where we go is up to us. We must continue to move forward. We didn't go to bed in 2020 and wake up in 1950. We have the opportunity to shape the way forward. as we now recognize through creativity that the world is our global marketplace like never before. We must infuse technology, we must infuse remarkable new strategies for recovery, and all of those will contribute to our overall resiliency. Today, we will benefit from the global and diverse perspectives of women who are truly shaping the future. They are the change makers. Our panel today will focus on transforming the future, bringing you strategies and innovative ideas for reshaping our future, looking at the recovery post-COVID and making sure that we are resilient in the face of any future challenges. My panelists today are Natasha Pilides, Irene Comte, Heidi Badwahi, Francesca Barak, and Noha Hefni. Our first panelist today, Natasha Pilides, was appointed as the Minister of Energy, Commerce, and Industry in July of 2020. Previously, she was appointed as the first shipping deputy minister for the Republic of Cyprus, heading strategic development and promotion of Cyprus as a world-class integrated maritime cluster. From April 2016 to March 2018, Ms. Pilides was Director General of the Cyprus Investment Promotion Agency, Invest Cyprus, responsible for the design and implementation of Invest Cyprus's strategy for the investment, promotion, investor support, and facilitation of reform. She has more than 15 years of private sector experience, notably as Director and Regional Chief Operating Officer for Baker Tilly Southeast Europe, heading the departments of Finance, Marketing, HR, Administration, Operations, and IT, for Cyprus, Georgia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Moldova. She has also worked for 9 years at PwC in Cyprus, Milan, and London in audit and tax consulting of multinational companies active in the fields of banking and finance, shipping, insurance, energy, construction, and FMCG. Ms. Pilides has a wide experience in delivering professional training and courses for many renowned exams in the area of audit, tax, corporate law, ethics, financial accounting and reporting, and BPW London, a leading professional studies organization. She graduated from Oxford University with first-class honors degree and distinction in modern languages and literature, and she's a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of England and Wales and a member of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Cyprus. Ladies, please join me in welcoming Natasha Pilides. I believe you're on mute.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Larissa. Thank you for the lovely introduction, and thank you for the to all the BPW presidents for their very insightful remarks. I would like to start my own remarks by congratulating BPW Cyprus for all the excellent work they have been doing in the last year since our last BPW Mediterranean Symposium, and also for having the courage to take the initiative to do this event online instead of cancelling it, giving us all the opportunity to take part and to connect perhaps with even more people and important, successful and powerful women from all over the world. Although I've taken part in BPW events for quite a few years now, this is the first one I remember that's actually online. So it's a great initiative and a good start, and of course a good way to commemorate International Women's Entrepreneurship Day, which is so important. On a personal note, many thanks for inviting me for the third year, I think now in a row, to actually take part in the discussions, which I always find extremely interesting and motivating, and I hope that everyone joining will enjoy them as well. Much like BPW Cyprus's decision not to sort of take the easy way out and cancel the third Mediterranean Symposium, but instead to embrace technology and to connect virtually with all our BPW friends in the world. The Ministry of Energy, Commerce and Industry is also trying to really embrace technology in a much more proactive way, and to promote a global mindset for doing business for entrepreneurs in Cyprus, whether, of course, they be women or men. Our aim is to make the transition to a circular economy and to resource efficient growth, and to help entrepreneurs to see the opportunities of moving into a greener era, instead of sort of viewing the whole matter as a bit of a chore, which perhaps was our approach in previous years. So I think the EU Green Deal has generally helped all EU countries to change their mindset towards a more positive approach. And I think the same is happening in Cyprus, with 2050, of course, as our very important landmark year for complete decarbonisation and carbon neutrality. Certainly within this market, we also have to ensure that women are on an equal footing with men in the decision-making and execution process, but that they also have the right tools to be able to succeed as entrepreneurs. And as Ministry of Commerce, we are introducing next year a very big and ambitious round of funding programs. Our next program period, 2021 to 2027, will include around 400 million in funding programs. So that's quite a big amount. It's going to be a challenge for us to basically be able to do all the work required to make sure that entrepreneurs and business people will have access to those funds, and that we will be able to not only accept their forms and proposals, but to also examine them quickly and be able to approve them quickly. So we're doing a lot of work both to start promoting this soon, to start showing people how to fill out their applications, what they need to do in order to have a competitive proposal, and how and when to actually do the process. We're also digitizing our processes so that we can do all of that digitally, both in terms of accepting proposals and applications, and also in examining them. So we have lots of things that we're doing: digital upgrade, women's and youth entrepreneurship, enhancement of circular economy, advice for SMEs and mentoring, which is something very important in guiding young people in the right direction. Export help desk, which is another tool that we offer, as well as a fast track mechanism for businesses to start their operations in Cyprus. So all of that will be happening through our ministry, and I hope that women in Cyprus will find it useful, and that the difficulties arising from the COVID situation will be tackled by everyone through teamwork and, of course, the tools that we will have available. We're also doing a program on traditional professions, where we will be funding people to get training on things like embroidery, weaving, pottery, professions that are now basically in danger of disappearing forever. And so I think that's a good opportunity for people and women to work from home, to work as much as they want to work, and to have a good income by timing their work in their schedule as fits them best. And also, of course, helping us to preserve our traditional professions and crafts. And we're also doing a new institutional framework on cottage industry, which will do the same, which will enable women and men to basically have small-scale manufacturing businesses from home, which hopefully will also help people to stay perhaps in their villages and areas outside of towns, and to have a business that can get funded as well from our ministry, and to do their work from home. So that's it as an opening statement. The government, of course, is not an entrepreneur, but we're here to help entrepreneurs to thrive, and hopefully we will be able to help in these challenging times.
Thank you, Natasha. And you are minister of a very important ministry overseeing energy, commerce, and industry, which are three very critical sectors as we move forward. And some of those that we've seen the greatest challenges during COVID, with some of our supply chain disruptions and the lapses in our manufacturing and industry. With new strategies for corporate governance and commerce being much more global now, where do you see the greatest opportunities for women in this new global economy?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that women face in Cyprus, at least, is balancing the family obligations that they have with their business world. And I think the fact that a lot of that most trade is now happening digitally is a big advantage in that direction. So we are hoping to be able to provide tools for small business to go digital. So we offer funding for businesses to create e-shops, to create platforms that they can sell things from. And we also have been working with the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which has such a digital platform as well, which we hope will be taken up by a lot of business people so that they can do business through those platforms. I think that at the same time, on a sort of wider level, we also need to be introducing policies that will allow women and men to share household responsibilities equally. And as now we are in a digital world, well, both women and men can work from home at different times. I think that should be encouraged so that women do not have the single, the bulk of the responsibility in that area. And I think that's crucial in allowing them to focus on their careers and to also have an equal opportunity to develop them.
Absolutely. In manufacturing, which has been traditionally a very male-driven sector, how can we really facilitate opportunities for women to become leaders in the manufacturing and industry sector?
That's a very good question. And as Ministry of Industry, we basically do have a lot of programs on funding manufacturing companies. And you're absolutely right that they are mainly driven by men. But I think that has a lot to do with education as well, in that traditionally, the more technical professions and educational programs were considered to be more appropriate for men. So one of the things that we're doing is we're having some digital events with schools in December, and we're doing a few other awareness campaigns where we're trying to showcase the professions that have prospects, and most of them, a lot of them, are within the manufacturing and generally the sort of technical areas. So I think that a lot of it starts with getting our young people, particularly in Cyprus, where we have a very service based economy, to shift and to start obtaining and developing their skills in technical area. And that's something that is truly key, I think, to growing our manufacturing industry and to finding more people to actually join it. Because at the moment, what we see, and another thing that we do as Ministry of Industry in this case, is to facilitate third country nationals and people to come from abroad with specialized skills, because we cannot find them here in Cyprus. So on the one hand, you have the threat of rising unemployment, and on the other hand, you have the need for people with skills that we don't have. So obviously there's a mismatch there which we need to address.
You know, the importance of sustainable commerce will present new pathways to business acceleration and growth. How can we encourage businesses to prioritize sustainability in their business models?
I think that's crucial particularly for countries that are members of the EU, where sustainability is no longer just an option or a CSR activity. It's the way forward. It's what should dominate the strategy of any organization, however big or small. And again, I think awareness and education is a big part of it, but I also think that funding is a big part of it. So I mentioned earlier that we are going to be introducing 400 million euros worth of funding into the economy. About half of that, if not more, is on programs that have to do with green energy, whether it be circular economy, whether it be introducing technology that will enable companies to become greener. But we also have a lot of funding for programs that have to do with homes or with business environments where people can upgrade their working environment or their home environment so that it becomes much more energy efficient, and even to get things like chargers for electric cars, because I think that both the funding and the education and everything needs to be holistic, and it needs to address every aspect of our lives, whether it be our home lives or our business environment.
Well, it's clear that Cyprus is undoubtedly leading the way, an example for all other nations to follow as they put their models for the future in place. And I certainly commend you as a woman in a traditionally male-dominated ministry for really being one of those great change makers. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll come back together a little bit later for more of a discussion. Our next speaker is Irene Comte. Irene has 20 years of experience in management in both public and private sector companies, nationally and internationally. She's passionate about organizational performance and culture, placing special focus on diversity, conscious leadership, and developing better communications and interpersonal skills, which of course we all need to keep refining as we progress forward as businesswomen. She was educated as a geographer in Spanish and Dutch universities, devoting 15 years to the Geographic Information System, the GIS, applied to urban and territorial management. From 2009 to 2015, Irene was the deputy director of Urbitosha, a technology company specializing in smart cities and IoT in an international market. Working with several other companies in leadership positions focused on smart cities around the world, as well as collaborating as an advisor with the European Commission, Irene is focused on her passion for developing skills for conscious leadership, working with C-suite teams to enhance performance, development, and growth. She is certified as a Chief Learning Officer, where she helps businesses transform processes, which benefits her now as co-founder of CALP, Conscious and Agile Leadership Program for Leaders in a New Era. Please join me in welcoming Irene Comte.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Larissa. Hello, everyone at the audience and my co-speakers. It's a great honor to be today with you from Barcelona in Spain. Thank you to the organization for the invitation, and it's really an honor. As you have seen from the profile and also from the banner, I am interested in many things around organizations, entrepreneurship, but I am very much focused on leadership in recent years. And the reason for that is because I am a great believer that leadership is one of the main levers for transformation in organizations. And we need a lot of that now. And this symposium is about transforming the future. Now, I would like to start with some good news, because working on leadership for so many years, I can see already that we are shifting paradigms in leadership. And we are moving towards what I think are very, very positive changes in leadership. I would like to start by sharing one of the trends that I am observing globally, which is that we are moving away from a kind of leadership that used to separate things instead of integrating. We are moving away from a leadership that could separate, for example, corporate benefits from social benefits. As we are moving away from this leadership that separated, let me use this analogy, the heart and the mind, we are moving into a new kind of leadership which basically is able to integrate everything. We are looking into organizations that are working to balance corporate benefits and social benefits. And I think also the good news is that women have always been very, very good at integrating different aspects. So for this reason, I am always very positive to look at women gaining more presence in leadership positions, because I think the type of leadership that women have been deploying for many, many years is now going along with the times and with what we need now. Basically, these new leadership styles are bringing things such as humility, service, leaders that are compassionate, leaders that can be detached, at the same time that they take care of benefits and of being profitable. I think that's one of the interesting leadership trends that we are going to be seeing in the coming decades, and where women will have a leading role, I think. For now, Larissa, I would like to leave it here, and I wait for the questions of our audience, if that's all right.
Sure. Could I ask you just a couple of questions? Because you sparked some thoughts in my mind. You know, as women assume greater positions in leadership and have more opportunities to really step into roles that, again, have traditionally been held by men, what's the major shift in leadership that you envisage, and why can women be the ones shaping this shift?
It's a very good question. I think that one of the major shifts has to do with this idea of being able to integrate different aspects. Let me say that it's not so much about being a man or a woman in leadership, but the kind of leadership culture that has been dominant until now was promoting certain values that were more, let me use the word, egotistic. So the success was more individual. So you could be a great leader if you were able to have really big benefits for your company. And it didn't matter if you didn't care about the people in your organization, or it didn't matter if you didn't care about the community where you were, or the planet, let's say. Now, this is no longer going to be accepted. A good leader has to be first a good person with strong and clear values. It has to have integrity, and it has to care not only for the inner community, which is the organization and their people, but also the other circles, you know, the near, the outer community, and the social good. And I think women have been historically more prepared for that, because we are more prone to taking into account everything. It's easier for us to have this holistic view. Let me say this is a feminine value, not exclusive to women, okay? Let's be clear, because I know wonderful men who can do that too. But it's this shift from an individualistic view to a community view, a holistic view of things. And that's also good for opportunities finding.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And men generally, or the masculine, they generally have a very linear way of thinking. They're on one pathway, whereas women, we can see from multiple and diverse perspectives, and we can connect dots that many others can't even begin to imagine. So that really makes it very compelling for women as leaders to begin or be a part of the critical dialogue of reshaping this new transformational future. But how can organizations start to adapt to the uncertainty and start driving some successful strategies for resiliency as we move forward in the wake of COVID?
Well, one of the tricky things about uncertainty is that you cannot plan it, you cannot really control it. The only thing you can do with uncertainty is navigate it. That's said by many experts that are already working on uncertainty. And navigating means that you need to be adaptable, you need to be flexible, you need to have this holistic view to find opportunities in places that you would never have thought that there would be opportunities. So organizations need to start to be more creative. They need to start fostering collaborative work, of course. They need to start empowering more the people, all the people of the organization. So we are going to look into more horizontal type of leaderships. So the leader that thinks that he's the hero or she's the hero that will solve everything, that's no longer going to be useful. We need to shift our mindset there. So creativity, openness, collaborative intelligence, and many of these.
Well, they say these are the times when fortunes are made and fortunes are lost. And for those who are brave enough to cast aside the legacy business model and be brave enough to really move in a different direction that will allow them to be the leaders, I think that's how we're going to shape a remarkable new future. And women have that ability because we really do have a very broad perspective that allows us to see solutions that others can't. But Irene, thank you so much. We'll come back together later for some questions from the audience, but I truly appreciate you being here today. Our next guest, ladies, is Dr. Heidi Badawahi, and I need to put my glasses on because my eyes just don't work like they used to. Dr. Badawi is a coach and mentor who leads inclusive leadership in various global boards and international African and Australian women's empowerment networks. Heidi is the founder of a Future STEAM entrepreneur community for thriving youth in STEAM and future learning opportunities and success. Heidi is the recipient of the inaugural Women's Board Leadership Program Scholarship from Victorian Government. She is recognized as an international public speaker at several international forums, such as the Women's Economic Forum 2020, and received the iconic Women Creating a Better World for All award. Heidi is a Global Goodwill Ambassador of Australia at GGA Global Ambassador and the Director of Australia Oceania, a member of Australian Institute of Company Directors, was a board director at the Women with Disabilities Victoria and a board member at the United National Australian Association. Heidi is also a member founder of the Women Heart to Heart that has members from all continents, including Africa. She has a science background and had 4 registered patents in science innovation and has been awarded several international and national awards in the areas of science and teaching innovations, including an Endeavour Language Teacher Fellowship from the Australian government. Please join me in welcoming Heidi Badawahi. Hi, Heidi.
Hello. I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you for BPW for having me today among the great panelists and the great leaders of the world. I'm so fascinated with the solutions so far from everyone, and it's really a great opportunity to listen and learn and reflect myself on what I learned about here. Thank you for the intro again. I started my career at the age of 10, where I actually advocating for science at very young age and working on STEM, and the STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and maths. Up to now, and after 30 years in this career, I developed a great initiative to inspire another youth and the teenagers to go through the same sort of journey of discovering the beauty of science and math in resolving too many global and self obstacles that they can actually face in the world. I feel that STEM is really important as a competency, as a skill to hone on facing the challenges worldwide. And I can't emphasize enough, when you embed it with basic leadership, transformational leadership, and other skills, we can create magic. So I do believe, as the ladies been mentioning several times in their talks and in their intros, that collective intelligence is needed during this time. And not only collective intelligence of different people, that intelligence within us. I follow a very simple framework, which is based on three main: the personal development and the cultural development and the global mindedness. And I also feel that this framework shaped my journey, and it will shape my journey in succeeding and navigating through adversity, COVID, and any milestone I will face. So through the last 30 years, I was trying actually to advocate and have a systemic advocacy in several boards on how we can use STEM beside and hand on hand with kindness and values framework, how we can have both feeding into each other, how we can actually use the left and the right brain abilities which we have and our traits to serve us. And I feel every time I actually combined and having this sort of within me, integration within on a neural level, and using this sort of scientific skills, I succeed in actually going through different lenses and different ways of businesses. So I feel that we need to work on those three wholeness sort of structure: self-development, where actually ethics and values and discovering ourselves in a true and different way, discover our uniqueness in this universe, that we are unique and every one of us is unique and can serve the universe in a different way. And the second one, finding the right soil and the ecosystem and the culture which will serve us to achieve any dream we dream of, or any business we think of. Finding the right people, the positive people, support and hold our hands and guiding us, it's really important element as well. Finding the right soil you nurture yourself in and have a great feeling of your self-worth and self-belief, it's really important. The third level, which is I believe that we are unstoppable now in this era as women of doing, breaking the ceiling, and breaking the ceiling, which is having the cosmo universe serving the universe, serving us in our dreams and achieve dreams which people stopped us for decades of thinking of or dream of, or reaching a specific sort of role, or being in a specific sort of responsibility, or being a decision making, or being on actually a table serve the world. So it's time actually to claim this, and it's time to feel that the universe is serving us once we discover those three areas. And of course, the competencies which we should hone on all the time. Stop asking for our rights and take our rights. Stop saying that women needs to have a gender actually balance, where we actually start to talk about how we gonna navigate through our rights, how we be 50-50 and speak about it as it's already our rights. We're not asking for it, we're claiming it, we're acting on it. The other important element, which is really very important in any thriving business. Surrounding yourself with the action-oriented people and the people who really have big missions and visions in place and focusing on their missions all the time. Stop thinking about goals, because goals now it's out of fashion. It's about habits and creating those very great habits we achieve every day. So think about motivational tools and inspirational tools which will make you jump out of your bed every single day saying, I can do this, I will do this right now, is a key element. So make all the STEM and the non-STEM skills in you, serving you to reach all your dreams in businesses and any other thing. And use the multi-talent sort of traits you have as women to serve you. Thank you.
Now, Heidi, this is a subject that really resonates with me as I'm a partner on technology parks that are being developed around the world. So technology is so critical. And, you know, when I look at how our global education systems have really aimed our youth towards STEM, and now STEAM, and in the technological world, we see that as science, technology, analytics, engineering, and math. But I disagree with that, because to be a truly well-rounded individual and one who can envisage the right way forward that will allow us to be competitive from all angles, that shouldn't be analytics, it should be arts, and being able to incorporate, you know, physical movement and physical education and an appreciation for music and arts and culture. So what is the role of this new STEAM in the mind shifts that we're seeing globally?
Basically, I'm 100% with you, Larissa. It shouldn't be analytics, it should be an art, because art allows a new room for creativity and innovation and thinking outside the box. And as I mentioned before, it's allowing you to use the left and right brain, the wholeness we always dream of, which is use our brain in maximum potential to serve us. It's not only using our brain, we use our heart, because the energy between the heart and the brain creating this sort of, I will go a bit sciencey here, electromagnetic field of energy, which is serving you again, making you connected with what you're doing. And it's actually bringing the joy. Joy, it's really important value to have in current work environment, and it's something should all leaders adopt. So finding joy and finding happiness in what you do, it comes from art. We listen to the music when we feel down. We actually draw something, or even a small drawing of a little bit of scribbles or lines can release our emotions in a very nice and fancy way. And this is exactly what neuroplasticity and using the neural and science in serving leadership, how it works, and in STEAM as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that, you know, to achieve our full potential and to really then achieve what is complete happiness, we have to find a balance, an equitable balance between the left brain and the right brain. And that's why it concerns me so much that we place such a priority on left brain and critical thinking, and we don't have that creative outlet that we really encourage. And that's really where the greatest solutions for our future are going to be found, is in that balance between the left and the right brain. But why is it important to have this wholeness framework? How will this contribute to success?
The wholeness framework actually offering the diversity inclusion and the diversity intelligence, which we actually been talking about for decades without actioning it. So in order to bring the diversity inclusion into the table and be really the doers, not the people who saying it, we should actually implement the wholeness framework. It's been in academia for the last 30 years, been with transformational leaders and speakers in the world talking about it, but no one actually discovered it until lately with the COVID, unfortunately. So it's one of the advantages of the COVID, rediscovering the old traditions which can serve us in a better way. And I am actually against the people saying it's time to demolish or vanish the norm or what we had, because this is the roots which we need to actually rework on it. And speaking about the wholeness as well, the SDG framework, it shouldn't be the way we used it right now of the 17 goals as a sort of not an ecosystem co-creating. It's time actually for creativity to have two goals together, working on poverty with women, working on SDG 1 with SDG 5, and let the magic happen by mixing and matching different SDG goals to serve you in this wholeness idea.
But you know, I prioritize the SDG goals in everything I do. And I always say that number 17 is my favorite, collaboration. But that's not just collaboration amongst businesses and individuals and enterprises. That's collaboration amongst the goals, as you said. And, you know, when you really prioritize impact to one goal, you have an ancillary impact on so many of the other goals. And the SDGs are really a wonderful framework for the future. So, but thank you so much for your comments today. I look forward to having you address some of the questions from the audience later, and I really appreciate you being here. Our next guest, who is my fellow sister from NFBPWC here in the United States, is Francesca Barak, who is the CEO and president of Fearless Talent Development, a management consultancy that supports the fearlessness in women. She is a recognized international speaker, visionary, transformational leader, and change maker. As a speaker, Francesca has inspired business audiences around the world. As a consultant, she works with companies seeking systemic change in their management practices and culture. And as a coach and strategist, she guides individuals to fearlessly step into their own power and take action with heart and conviction. Francesca has been working with emerging and experienced leaders for 35 years. Her special gift is helping people reframe and refocus situations in the most positive, realistic way so that new options and directions are created and implemented. Francesca has received many awards and recognitions, such as the New York Chamber of Commerce and Industries Award for Excellence in Business Performance and Commitment to New York City, and she's received the U.S. Small Business Administration Award for Women in Business. She's an advocate of the year for her commitment to the advancement of women's business ownership, and she was elected a delegate to the White House Conference on Small Business. Francesca was recently named one of the 100 most inspirational women in the world. It's my pleasure to introduce my friend, Francesca Barak.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you, Larissa, my friend and my sister. It is so wonderful to be here with all of my BPW sisters and our distinguished guests. Today, we're talking about recovery and resiliency and strategies to help us overcome this pandemic and the suffering that we have experienced through these difficult times. I want to talk a little bit about resiliency, and I want to talk about women. Women have the power to change this world. We lead with our heart, with empathy, and with care. And it is through resiliency, individual resiliency, that we will move forward. And one of the ways that I always coach my clients to be resilient is to really look at the world with the lens of gratitude. What are you grateful for? And that is one way to help us reframe and refocus how we are seeing the world right now. So let's take a look at rituals. Someone was talking about habits. It is really important to start the day in the proper frame of mind. And one of the strategies I use in the morning is to do a grateful list. And a grateful list consists of coming up with 5 people, places, or things that you are grateful for as you start the day. So one of the things that I listed this morning is that I am grateful for Mary, the president of BPW Cyprus. And I am grateful for the sun that is shining today. What are 5 things that you are grateful for? Make a list, keep it written. And by the way, you can only use what you are grateful for your examples for today. And you have to wait 30 days to be able to be grateful for those things again. And in this way, what it does is it opens your eyes to really look around and to determine and to see things that maybe you haven't been looking at before. And when you start your day with gratefulness, it is very difficult to experience fear and anxiety. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is looking at the women that have dropped out of the workforce. In addition to helping us become resilient within ourselves, we need to look at the forgotten population. Women have been forced to drop out of the workforce due to commitments at home. They've become the teachers of their students. And boy, don't we now appreciate teachers of the world much more than we ever have in our lifetime. And these women are the forgotten women. So why not reach out to them? Do you know someone that's had to drop out of the workforce? How about giving them a call on a daily basis, letting them know that we have not forgotten them, helping them to maintain their resiliency and to one day be able to re-enter the workforce. And speaking of workforce, I wanted to talk a little bit about our future workforce. How are we preparing our future workforce? Will they be able to meet the needs that are going to come up in the future? And we've been talking about economic equality, but how do you have economic equality without educational equality? This is an area that is near and dear to my heart because it was through education that I was able to change my life and move from a low socioeconomic environment into the middle class, the American dream. And I wish that for all women around the world, that your dreams become a reality. So, what do we do about this? How do we help prepare the future workforce? Well, right now, an individual thing that we can do is to do an inventory. Many places have mobilized I'm getting a lot of clicks on my phone, excuse me. Many places have mobilized to take up the slack and the emptiness and the voids that have been created. And so some of them are focusing on education. How do we get involved with these organizations? What can we do? How can we spend our time, our energy, and our money? Because if we don't prepare the future workforce, how can we succeed? How can our economic engine really move forward and be sustainable? There are many other ways that we can do this, but I'm going to stop now, and we can talk more about resiliency and education and how to reach out to other women, how to take care of ourselves during these times, and how to take care of others. So Larissa.
So you mentioned, Francesca, that this is a year where we've more or less been shrouded with fear and anxiety. You know, how can women take a deep breath and adjust course and really have the courage to potentially follow a completely different path than they were following 9 months ago or a year ago?
I say stand in your power. Look at all the things you've accomplished in your life. No matter how big, no matter how small. And let's face it, many of us, including myself, have gone through the imposter syndrome where we don't think we have what it takes. And maybe we're experiencing that right now due to the fear and the anxiety. But I'd like to quote a woman who was recently, I forget her name, who was recently chosen to head up a tech company. And she talked about how she got rid of her imposter syndrome. And that is that she looked around and saw all the big mistakes and all of the difficulties that we are having. And she decided that if all of these men did all of these things that created all of these problems, why should I be afraid to take risks and to experiment? So I offer that to you. There are so many people who have made so many risks. Fear, we will always be afraid of things, but it's what you do with the fear. You manage the fear. You step over it and around it. And you say to yourself, I've handled situations like this before. It might not be the exact same one, but I've managed other situations. I've been successful, and I can do this again. Remember the mindset. That's the other issue. You can do anything you set your mind to if you ask people for help and if you move forward being prepared.
You know, you and I talk so much about the importance that BPW as a sisterhood has played in allowing us to really have that confidence to move forward in a year that has been as tumultuous as what 2020 has been. For you as the former president of the New York City BPW chapter, and for me as the first vice president of membership here in the U.S., membership in these sister sororities of professional women is so critical to allowing us to really be able to see the fractures and understand ways that we can pivot, ways that we can transform our business mindsets, and for sure, ways that we can navigate these uncertain times personally. You know, what would you say to women who really could benefit from an organization such as BPW, and how do you see us better being able to drive our global membership in BPW at a time like this?
Well, there are two things. One is, you mentioned collaboration. It is so important to surround yourself with women who think the way you think. Of course, coming at it from diverse angles, excuse me. But here we are. If you join a group like this of like-minded women who are out to create economic empowerment and equality, helping women move ahead, helping women fulfill their dreams, supporting you in what you want to do, taking a role in the community to make the world a better place for us, for our daughters, for our granddaughters, etc. All of those things, then BPW is the organization for you. And the sisterhood, the friendships, everything. You know, it's just such an amazing thing. I had a birthday recently, and here I am, isolated. I live alone in New York City. I rarely go out. And I had so many BPW sisters calling me, WhatsApping me, LinkedIn, Facebook. It felt so good. So if you want to feel good about who you are and feel connected, I recommend that you join the BPW local affiliate, wherever you are listening from. And the second part was, Larissa?
Oh, goodness. I don't remember anymore.
I was just on such a roll with BPW because let me tell you, it was such an honor and a privilege to serve as president and to watch our advocacy grow, to be able to work with other women's organizations and collaborate on getting laws passed that helped women and families, and to have other women, you know, rubbing shoulders with you, being in the fight with you, helping others that you don't even know. You know, this is the strength and the vitality of this organization.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Take a role in the organization, work hard, learn how to be a follower as well as a leader.
And I think, you know, we all see so much value and benefit from BPW, even above and beyond business and professional skills and support, just that sisterhood. And I know here in the United States, we're encouraging all of our members to bring a member before the end of the year so that we can really see our membership grow. And, you know, when you can see what support that we give one another, what knowledge we share, the mentorship that you get from BPW, you know, I really think this is a phenomenal opportunity for our BPW sisters internationally to look at joining chapters and affiliates in countries even outside their own, so that we can really promote that global sisterhood and get to know one another on a much more intimate basis, which will allow us to grow our businesses, expand our opportunities for commerce, and for sure give us limitless opportunities for new friendships. And to go back to your grateful list, with Thanksgiving in the United States coming up this week, I can certainly say that my BPW sisters are top on my thankful list. So thank you, Francesca. It was a pleasure to have you here today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Our next guest is Noha Hefny. Noha is the founder and CEO of People of Impact, a social impact innovation and consulting company. Noha is a senior corporate leader, consultant, humanitarian, and entrepreneur with 2 decades of experience in the fields of strategic communications, partnerships, humanitarian protection, and sustainable development with a focus on refugee protection, youth engagement, social entrepreneurship, and women's economic empowerment. During her career, she represented some of the world's most powerful and admired brands, where her journey has been driven by purpose and social impact. She has a wealth of multifaceted experiences across the public and private sectors and in entrepreneurship, and she's a sought-after speaker on topics ranging from gender equality, social entrepreneurship, authentic leadership to youth engagement, and more. In a private sector, she was the Director of Corporate Affairs and Social Responsibility at PepsiCo, discovering the Middle East and North Africa, followed by becoming the Director of Communications at McKinsey & Company, covering Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. She also co-founded 2 startups, one of which is She Arab, the world's first dedicated speakers platform for Arab women, addressing underrepresentation in leadership and speaking roles. She started her career at UNHCR in the field of refugee protection and worked in Egypt and Tunisia, where she was a focal point for women survivors of violence and unaccompanied minors. She also undertook 2 field assignments in South Africa and Algeria and East Sudan, focused on reuniting families separated by conflict and voluntary repatriation. She was the only Arab woman in the field at the time. At UN Women and UNESCO, she served as a consulting capacity focusing on education and gender equality around advocacy and programs. She is a nominee of the Thalberg Ellison Foundation Global Leadership Prize, the recipient of the GCC Women's Leadership Award by CMO Asia, and the World Leadership Congress in 2019. She was also nominated for the 2018 Women of the Year Award in the humanitarian category by Emirates Woman. She was a board member for E7 Daughters of the Emirates program, in addition to her role as a mentor at the Cherie Blair Foundation. Noha holds a BA in Political Science and International Relations from the American University in Cairo. She is also an avid well-being and yoga enthusiast, a wife, and a mother of 2 wonderful boys. Please join me in welcoming Noha Hefny. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Larissa, and thank you so much for this wonderful introduction. It's really my pleasure to be here. And I also want to express my gratitude and special thanks to Mrs. Mary Papadopoulos, the president of BPW Cyprus, and to Viola Edward for their support and for bringing me here tonight.
Noha, it's wonderful to have you. Please continue.
Okay, so although this is a virtual setting, I wanted to start by recognizing all the women around the world, those in business and others who have been at the forefront of the crisis. As senior government officials, as leaders of businesses, as nurses, teachers, mothers, and caregivers. Those who have courageously led nations, organizations, families through this pandemic and who continue to do so. They are the heroes of 2020 for me, so I'd like to express my respect and gratitude to them. They show us time and again that women not only lead, but also may be even better leaders that lead with resilience and courage and can transform countries and economies. So before I continue, I'd like to share a couple of numbers that struck me while preparing for this talk. So I wanted to say that even before COVID-19, WEF estimated that it will take 257 years to achieve economic gender parity, or 10 generations of women. So we hear this over and over again. But what that tells me is that there is a need to change the narrative on gender equality. There is a need to move maybe into looking at balance versus equality. Maybe some of the terms and the traditional notions that we have been following for years, need to change and be transformed. That's not to say that the picture is rosy. There is inequalities that are widespread across the world, But definitely we need to revisit and we need to learn from this pandemic and from everything that we have witnessed over the past couple of years. Also, another interesting fact is that the UN warned us that inequalities are growing for more than 70% of the global population, which consists mostly of women, and that this would lead us to risks of division and hinder economic and social development. We know that women play a critical role on the front lines of the pandemic, but they've also been the most impacted as a result because they make up 70% of the global health workforce and they risk their own safety every day for others. And as a result as well, they are 3 times more likely than men of mental health illness. They also work, the majority of those who work in the hardest hit sectors in the economy are women. They constitute 527 million. And ILO estimates that 200 million jobs will be lost. And the World Bank predicts that 50 million people will face extreme poverty by this year, out of which the majority are women. However, while we hear these numbers of a significant magnitude, we also know from studies issued by McKinsey and others that economic parity between men and women could also be an economic opportunity that adds 28 trillion or 26% to the global GDP. So the question is, what can we do at this moment, at this turning point in the history of the world and humanity? We need to change course and we need commitment, we need accountability. Other statistics that are staggering relate to women in disadvantaged and vulnerable settings, such as 25 million refugees, out of which the majority are women, 690 million people affected by hunger, 1.2 billion who lack access to electricity, 800 million who lack access to clean drinking water. Again, mostly women are impacted. So how can we deal with this disproportionate inequality? And what do we need to do in terms of a resilient recovery? And I think here, there are systemic changes that need to happen, but there's also a responsibility for each one of us. And I want to start by saying that the solutions that we need to look at need to place women at the heart of recovery decisions and efforts at all levels of organizations. Gender equality can enable a faster recovery because when we have more balanced workplaces, balanced societies where everyone is represented, we can then build an inclusive world. Gender equality should not be seen as a social issue or a moral issue. It is an economic one, and it should be the strategic priority of every leader and every organization. This is our moment to drive change, and women should be at the forefront of leading this change. We cannot afford to lose this momentum, and sustainable development and SDG 5 realization goes hand in hand with recovery. And for that, we need you to lead. We need courage. We need aspirational, bold, transformative leadership to transform and inspire us towards a better future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Noha. And, you and I have known each other for many years since we first met when we were both working in the United Arab Emirates many years ago. And we share a passion and commitment for refugees. Me having been one of the few women who have been to refugee camps in Iraq and Jordan and Yemen. And, when you go into refugee camps, you can see the true tenacity and determination of women, because children do what children do everywhere they play. And the men are often congregated away, talking and often doing what men do best. But the women are the ones that are the entrepreneurs and the problem solvers and really the ones that have the ability to be the shapers and to change the whole dynamic for their families within those camps, if only we recognize that we have to help them with opportunity. And so women in the United States or in Germany or in Thailand are really no different than the women who are struggling in refugee camps, living with circumstances they themselves did nothing to create. But how can businesses globally support women, especially at these times of great disruption and uncertainty?
I think there are various ways, and one is mainstreaming gender into the policies, the standards, the rules, the governance of companies while coming up with decisions, making sure that women's voices are heard, represented in the design of workplace policies for recovery. We need to re-energize the role of business in sustainable development. Many companies have embarked on that journey, adopting targets and goals. Sometimes these targets and goals are not aspirational or bold enough, but also when they are, sometimes they're not sufficiently measured or reported on. So we need to look at that, and we need greater alignment between business and sustainable development. We need to preserve the micro, small, and medium enterprises, to revitalize the support of business for women entrepreneurs, social innovators, particularly those in tech and those in biology and chemistry who have actually, we discovered during the pandemic, they have the answers for the vaccine, for other scientific matters that could actually transform our way forward. But we need more women in those fields. And if we do have a lot of graduates in some regions and countries, then business has a great role to play in retention, mentorship, sponsorship for these women. I think another aspect is, we've seen during the pandemic, the reaction, of one of the bright sides, I would say, has to do with remote working and flexible working arrangements. I hope, having been in the corporate world, it was a dream when I was there to have that privilege of working from home frequently, etc. And despite having policies, it wasn't always possible the more senior you got. But so I definitely hope that it continues post-pandemic, because it does enable women to balance work and life. I also think that, building on what I said earlier, businesses should revisit parental leave policies to include men, because that will further advance the discussion around balance and equality, and make maternity and childcare, less stigmatizing for women in the workplace. In some cases, reduce the unconscious bias around that. And last but not least, I would say we need more women venture capitalists to invest in other women, because I was doing a research before a panel a couple of weeks back, and I found out that there is only 4.7% of the global investment going to women entrepreneurs from venture capitalists. Only 4.7% is going to women. And that is because you have 89% venture capitalists being men. So we need more women to invest in other women and in women-led business. We need to ensure that business procures and buys from women. We need to ensure that we are designing gender-sensitive procurement and budgeting policies that ensure women are included. So these are just, I could go on forever on so many of these solutions, but these are just, the general direction is to ensure that women's voice is captured and women's participation, leadership is part of every single decision that has to do with recovery. And only then, when we look at gender equality as a critical and vital part of recovery, will we be able to move the needle on that matter. As a social innovator, I really do hope, and this is a personal request from all, that social innovators and social entrepreneurs who are actually dedicating their lives to finding solutions to global pressing challenges and societal issues actually gain momentum during this pandemic, and in a resilient recovery have access to the right support, funding, and are able to bring their innovations forward for a better world.
You have such a diverse perspective, coming from both the corporate for-profit side and the NGO humanitarian side. What do you see as what we need to be able to build back better and ensure sustainability, a sustainable and resilient recovery as we move forward?
Honestly, we need to address the systemic gaps. And what I mean by that is we need a concerted effort. We need to reduce fragmentation and replication of efforts and the wastage of funds that go on unsustainable programs or irrelevant solutions in different contexts. We need human-centric design. We need open social innovations that brings communities and women to design the very solutions that can actually address the problems that are affecting them. So we need inclusiveness, inclusive leadership, inclusive participation in decision making. It is no longer a world where decisions can be made top down. It is a participatory, sharing economy where millennials and Gen Z are expecting a responsibility and accountability of different stakeholders. And we also need active citizenship, where women ourselves, speak up against injustice, where we learn and develop our skills in supporting one another, women to women, but not only, from a support network standpoint, but economically. Partner with your friends to pitch for business if you're a consultant and you do similar things and there are synergies. Ensure that you can share resources or pool resources for projects that can enable your advancement and so on. There's so many forms of caring alliances and partnerships that can enable women to progress. But it's all in our hands, and actually any transformation will only start with us, women, taking the lead, having the courage to overcome our fears, as Francesca said earlier, and enabling all these amazing women around us, giving them exposure, and moving away from competition to collaboration, partnership, and using our feminine traits and empathy and compassion for a better world.
You hit it. Collaboration is the most important aspect of what women can collectively do for the future. So thank you, Noha. I think I'd like this time to ask all of the panelists to come back together so we can have a bit of a discussion following everyone's comments. Hello, ladies.
Hello.
So many interesting points were raised today, very thought-provoking and from a variety of different perspectives. And, one of the most important common denominators is that, women, when we come together, essentially we can do anything. We can be the problem solvers and the change makers, but only if women truly support women. And too often still, we have women who tend to sabotage other women instead of support one another. How, as we move forward, can we begin to set aside those insecurities that we have that sometimes tend to pit us at one another rather than putting us there to have each other's back and supporting one another as we move forward?
So many of those insecurities stem from lies we tell ourselves about ourselves. So I think the first thing we have to do is start telling ourselves our story to ourselves has to be one of truth. Where are we? How have we gotten here? Where are we going? And what skills have we used to be able to get us to where we are today? What is it about our character? What is it about how we support other people? What is it about our involvement that has made us who we are today? And to focus on those things and stop worrying about whether or not, we crossed that T absolutely perfect. The perfection that we strive for is unrealistic. There is no perfection. There is the journey. Enjoy the journey. Acknowledge who you are. Bring your heart to yourself as well as to others. That would be my recommendation.
I think, Larissa, may I
please Irene.
follow on from Francesca, because yes. I think on top of that, or around what she was explaining, there was also the fact that we were living in a culture in general where competition was fostered and recompensated, if I may say. Competition was good, and cooperation was not considered so good, or was associated to weakness, and women also fell in the trap. That's my opinion, and fortunately, and I'm always very positive in there, we as women are starting to change that, and we are starting to stand tall and say out loud that cooperation is the new must. Cooperation is the new value. Cooperation, and it has been said today, is an asset for today's complexity and for today's uncertainty. We are all interrelated, and it's a new value to take into account.
If I can add to that, actually, I completely agree about the sort of unequal footing in terms of competitiveness. And I'll give you a very sort of obvious example. When I was running in the 2016 parliamentary elections, just generally you're allowed to vote for 6 people. And a lot of people would come up to me and say, "Oh, now that you're running, you're confusing us because we were going to vote for another one woman out of the 6, which was our token woman that we were going to vote for, and now we don't know who to vote for, whether we're going to vote for you or the other." And it was so, and a lot of women were saying this to me, and it struck me as really weird that they all had, this thing in their head that they were only allowed to vote for one woman and they therefore had to pick which one. And I think, as you very correctly say, that we often sort of forget that we have a choice and that, we need to change the situation. So I think Larissa is right that we need to keep reminding ourselves, and I think platforms like BPW have a very important role to play here, because if you sort of follow the preconceptions of the community, which are quite often influenced by more traditional people, men, people of a certain age, then you sort of fall into that trap. Whereas we need to keep reminding ourselves that the competition is not other women, the competition is other people in general. So there's no reason why we should fall in the trap of thinking that we are against each other. And I think that is something that people who are more not against equality, but who are more, let's say, hesitant to move in a forward direction, kind of foster that attitude. So we need to do a lot to counterbalance those voices.
Yeah, and Larissa, if I may build on that, extending women-to-women support for the less advantaged women, I think the starting point for that is for all of us to find our purpose and to see, which part of us, which gift or talent we have inside of us that we can unleash to also extend it to those who are less fortunate and in disadvantaged settings, like refugees, migrants, and women in Africa who currently, lack the infrastructure even for basic access to healthcare during a pandemic. So again, this is another, just a reminder of another form of a group of people that we need to continue also remembering in everything that we do to ensure we don't leave anyone behind and that sustainable development can be inclusive for all.
Yeah, and I think the only competition, when we have the notion that we're only competing with ourselves all the time, it will bring us a great aspect to our mindset, as Francesca say. It will create a great mindset of we're not in a competition with anybody except a competition with ourselves. I always say, even to my students, imagine that we are in a big test or a big game in our life and in our journey. And we have the paper, and we don't know when actually the observer will take this paper from us. So if we focus our energy and our tools and our competencies in this paper, we're not looking at who is in the race with us, I think we will perform much better. So having this notion of uniqueness, we are unique, and believing in our self-worth to the max, it will change the whole game, actually. And the feeling that we confident of doing anything and breaking the ceiling. I use this word a lot because women prove that they can break the ceiling in many sectors and in many systematic sort of advocacy. Be the voice of the people who are not heard, focus on the tools, not on humans. Focus on humans when you are actually in humanitarian acts and you act for kindness, or you act for goodwill, or you act for distributing peace. But don't focus on human as a part of your fear or a part of a competition way in a negative way. So focus on tools in competition and the focus on human in humanitarian acts. This is my answer for it.
No, I agree with all of that. And to your point, Noha, I think that, those of us who have more opportunity and who live in more complex societies, we have the responsibility to uplift and support those around the world who live without much of which we take for granted and who live in very challenged circumstances. And if we all endeavor to make a difference in the life of just one woman anywhere in the world, we will have an ancillary impact on millions for the generations to come. And this is one of the reasons why I love to encourage BPW sisters to look at membership outside of your own country or outside of your own chapter, so that we can really truly be the examples of what a global citizen is as we move forward. As I look at business in the framework of recovery and resiliency, and I see often that leaders tend to shoulder the burden of the challenges without wanting to share the worries with their employees or their staff, and they wear the weight of these problems. And, they're missing a phenomenal opportunity, because employees are a company's most important asset. How can we start to encourage leaders to really embrace their entire workforce as being the catalysts to their growth, their success, their recovery, and ultimately their resiliency?
I can contribute here from a communications and purpose perspective. I think it's very important for organizations as well to align not only around profit, objectives, and missions, but to use purpose to deliver that very mission of advancing their profit. So one step, when there is a greater purpose that the leader communicates and that the management embraces with clear, transparent goals to be realized by the organization, that rallies, and mobilizes the engagement and the support of the employees for that very purpose. We also know that the millennials and Generation Z and the younger generation are very keen on seeing businesses, drive purpose, drive change in the world, be responsible. And so the more I think organizations embrace purpose and align with purpose and define it clearly into their business strategies, and not as something that, is nice on the side of business, I think, you can have greater employee engagement. I couldn't undermine on that note the importance of communication and what I spoke about earlier around, making it two-way and ensuring that insights are gathered prior to decisions from the employee population, that people don't feel that all the decisions that most of the time nowadays have to do with restructuring, loss of jobs, things that will affect their health, their wellness, are taken top down. It's very important to have that two-way dialogue continue, and using technology for that during this time.
Anyone else have a comment you'd like to add?
Oh, go ahead, Francesca, please.
One of the things that I had to overcome, and I think that most women are brought up feeling like you're not supposed to ask for help. So I think that when women take on leadership roles, that sometimes that little cue is in the back of your head, don't ask for help. But really, if you look at it, when somebody asks you for help, don't you feel absolutely terrific when you can contribute? And so that's how leaders have to look at the situation. Number one, I totally agree with what was just said. Communication is so key. You have to involve people. It has to be two-way. You have to be willing to listen and not judge what you're hearing. And so, and when you make people feel like they're important, that they're listened to, and that they're not judged, they're willing to contribute more. The more contribution you have, the more input you have, the better your decisions are. So if you keep that in mind, if you're looking for the best decision, it doesn't have to come totally from you and how you're thinking. And with that in mind, the openness that you're willing to exhibit and a little vulnerability. You know, I'm struggling with this right now, and you, team, I would really like to have your input so that I can come up with the best decision that's going to affect all of us. So that kind of communication is really very, very important.
Irene, you had some thoughts?
Yes, I was gonna add to what Noha and also Francesca touched a very important point. Actually, in the Conscious and Agile Leadership Program that I run now in companies, communication in itself is one of the big pillars. But prior to that, and answering to your question on how can leaders empower the people in the organizations, I think prior to organization, to communication, leaders need to work on self-knowledge, self-consciousness, and humility. You know, and that's a big shift because empowering others for me is a slow process that requires that you work on humility, because it's shifting from this leader that is the hero, solving everything and having, let me say, little kids, you know, that obey and that abide, into a new leader which wants and fosters autonomy, co-responsibility in their workers, and participation, real participation. Now, to make this shift, the leader has to really grow on consciousness and on accepting that being a leader is to serve many things, but also that other people grow to their best, to the best of their potentials. So for me, that's also an important point: communication, but also consciousness, to accept that with joy.
Yeah, I think adopting as well transformational leadership styles where we actually decentralize the leadership and make it actually distributional among the whole team, and celebrating the teamwork to the max, it's really important. Raising initiatives like the mental illness awareness initiative and the Are You Okay Day or Are You Okay Week. Larissa and Natasha mentioned a very important 2 points, which is the global sort of experience in managing some adversity and some disaster management tools. So it's time to adopt, like, if other government or other country dealing with mental illness and having this global sort of national initiative, it's time to adopt it on international sort of mindedness sort of strategy. Building the capacity, it's really important. It's time for delegation. It's time for leadership to move towards delegation and to give all sectors and all the people working under us the taste of how to be a CEO or CFO of organization looks like. So live the day, mentorship, shadowing leadership. It's time to invite maybe every now and then, every 2 weeks, someone from our team to play our role and see the real picture of leading the organization, how it look like. So give a real taste of what we're doing. It's really important in sharing the vision and mission. Being a mission oriented and looking at the vision all the time, and don't lose your goal and bring the consciousness is the must. So being conscious in your actions, it's really important element of leadership in 2020 and beyond. And I can't emphasize anymore in co-creation. Future will not be great without co-creating it and imagining it, predicting it. So we will not be actually surprised of what we will face because we already have this readiness by co-creating it.
For sure. Natasha, we have a question from the audience. I think that that would be best led by you as far as an answer. Women tend, as Christine Lagarde said, women tend to bring innovation and diversity to the professional world, and diversity itself is conducive to changing the way we look at things. Cyprus' presence in today's geopolitical changes and being a part of the Euromed at the gates of Asia, Europe, and Africa has become a significant hub for the EMEA route on all levels. What are the efforts conducted in Cyprus, where Europe is becoming an aging society, having Africa filled with lots of resources while Europe lacks those resources, and jointly empowering both the presence of Cyprus in general and its women in specific in order to strengthen the position of Cyprus within the current geopolitical map?
Yes, I think that's a very the question raises some very important issues. Definitely small countries like Cyprus, particularly in turbulent or specific geopolitical regions, have a lot to do in strengthening the impact of the country and the leverage that it has. And I think that a key aspect of this is what I mentioned earlier, and what was mentioned actually by all the speakers, the importance of really sort of refocusing the skills and the knowledge that is needed for people to actually make an impact, and especially for women as well, where we need to direct young people in the right direction in terms of what skills and knowledge is going to be needed in the future in order for a country to be able to become a knowledge-based economy, an economy which produces innovation of a certain impact. And I think regional collaboration also has a huge role to play in that. I mean, each individual country has perhaps a much smaller role if it is isolated than if it is collaborating. And so at the state level, I think we have a big role to play in sort of enhancing the relationships with nations in the region, but also nations within the EU and important big partners such as the US, because through those regional collaborations we can open channels for people to actually have access to markets, have access to knowledge and skills and to information from around the world, and to enter the digital market in a way that is perhaps more difficult for economies that are a little bit more behind in those areas. And I think a lot was mentioned also about other countries that have such challenges. So it's important for us not only to help people within our own country, but to think about how to bring people on board from other regions of the world facing similar or even greater challenges. And as regards to the aging population that was mentioned in the question, yes, that's a big issue that I think we need to think about, not as Cyprus, but as Europe in general. How do we give families and young people the tools and the incentives to actually have larger families? And I think providing women with the right tools to be able to sustain a career and pursue a meaningful career whilst being able to have a family is a hugely important part of this. And I think, as was very correctly mentioned earlier, we need to be taking it for granted that equal rights should be given, and not to be sort of moaning about it all the time and accepting it. So we need to stop accepting what has been considered the norm for years. And so I think that sharing maternity leave is something really important. Some countries have done it. I think we need to move beyond just giving people more maternity leave, because that also has its problems in terms of women then being completely disconnected from the job sort of environments. I've seen a lot of my friends losing job opportunities and promotions to men because they've been away. So I think women should demand that if they've got a year or 6 months or 4 months or however long they've got in maternity leave, that they should be able to share that with men. So so from my side, that would be an important thing to do, measure to introduce.
That's so important for women in the childbearing ages, especially, is to be able to look at a restructuring and a shift in the mindset for young professional women, and that will really help to accelerate our opportunities for leadership growth. We have another question. It's actually very interesting to me as someone who's very passionate about agriculture, but Cyprus has a rich knowledge in general and in tourism and agriculture in specific, despite the lack of water resources. How would women take part with the new innovative technologies, and what are the offered plans, such as agriculture, for example, in which it would empower their presence, their know-how, and their skills? Any of you, if you have any thoughts on that.
I can mention the funding programs specifically that are available in Cyprus if there's any people in the audience from Cyprus that are interested. So there's a lot being offered by the Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm not hugely familiar with the specific funding programs over there. So I'll mention the ones that are available at our ministry, which are actually quite connected with agriculture and tourism. So we have big funding programs available in wine and trading of agricultural products. So from the trading perspective, we have 20 million EU program period for those, and also for manufacturing. Manufacturing also includes the sort of transformation of agricultural products into any other produce. So it doesn't need to be, very heavy manufacturing. So we have a lot of funds available, 50 million for that. So a lot of businesses active in those areas can apply. But as I said, we're also introducing training for women and men all over Cyprus, and we're trying to introduce training centres even in remote areas of the mountains and villages where people can reskill or upskill in various different professions such as embroidery, weaving, I mentioned earlier, but also carpentry, pottery. And I think that there is, because we're doing a rebranding of artisanal products, I think there can be a big market for things like lace that is disappearing and that goes for really high prices. So if we do a good job of rebranding those products and adding the Cyprus original product certification, which is something that we're really trying to do, that will enable people to produce, but also to sell at higher prices and to sell in the worldwide market as well. And lots of other funding programs available for digital upgrading of companies, whatever they are, SMEs in whatever sector of the economy. Women and youth entrepreneurship, there's 30 million on that. So again, for any type of enterprise, and circular economy, which is also hugely important. But there's also a new funding program for clusters as well, so that smaller companies can work together and come and ask for funding in teams, which I think is a really great idea for new entrepreneurs that can identify synergies in their businesses.
We have a follow-on question that I think nests nicely with the answer that you just gave with regard to training. And the question is, what about education and training? Very often, as we know, a woman's awareness of her own possibilities and potential begins well before being a career woman. It begins with education that's received in the family environment and from school. What can we do as professionals for any girl who does not yet know that she can make a difference in this world dominated mainly by a patriarchal culture? Anyone?
Mentoring programs. Participate in mentoring programs in young ages, as soon as you can. I'm now participating in one already for some years with high school girls. But if we could start earlier, that would also be good. I think that's one thing we can do, all of us. Donate some time and help little girls to start changing their mindset and start lowering their fears at young ages.
You know, the family also has. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you finished?
Yes.
Oh, okay. The family also plays a big role in this. It's really important that if you have daughters, or if you have friends who have daughters, or cousins, or any young girls that you have contact with, it's important to talk to them about the possibilities that exist in the world today. Look at how the female leaders of countries handled COVID versus so many of the men, and how they handled COVID. Of course, my governor was just terrific, Governor Cuomo, but pointing out leaders, female leaders, it's so important. It's so important about the books we give our girls to read. You know, books on astronauts, books on engineers, books on all kinds of things. I know, still in schools, girls still are still reading books and not so much on their are still, leafing through books. And so that's really important. The conversations about, some of your own fears when you were their age and how you overcame them. These are very, very important conversations, especially in the family. And to call out family members that are saying inappropriate things to young girls. To do that, privately, or if something's happening at the moment, and you could just say, well, I'm looking at that just a little bit differently. Maybe a girl can do this and this. And look, this is some of the proof behind that. It's really, really important for us to stand up and to speak out. It's so very important. Use your power every day to help young girls.
I can speak here as well about two robust frameworks at the moment by UNESCO and by World Economic Forum in creating the future jobs and future education, how it looks like, based on extensive research on about 300 sort of academic research suggesting, again, a holistic framework of embedding ethical framework, STEM and the science and the technology skills and the competencies, and the informal education. It's time for the role of informal education, as simple as empowering people who are non-educated, that they play an important role in educating different generations by offering storytelling. We now recognize that storytelling is one of the greatest skills in leadership. And if we can empower women in rural areas who really don't have formal education, that they really have the capacity to build generations who are well educated and well informed by just telling them the story of success in their businesses or in a small sort of management to the house life and the balance in the house, we can succeed. So it's time to give a room to informal education to have a say, to the social groups and women groups like the one we are here. You don't have to be coming from academia. You don't have to hold a PhD or a title next to you to give your voice and to have an inspirational sort of effect and impact and legacy. It's time to finding the legacy in every single competency we have as women, and with the normal traits we actually raised up with. Our multitasking sort of capacities of handling any sort of obstacle can set us above and behind anyone. We are really great in multitasking, and we can actually show it as a competency skill for education. So time for even unlearning. It's not all about learning. It's time to give a room for unlearning. And I can't emphasize anymore in the successful tools of like Montessori and outside the box of education, IB education and the IG education, where they really advocating for thinking outside the box, learning by inquiry, having an inquiry and questioning skills highlighted in education. It's really important. Having an ethical framework, get back to the roots of being kind, being human, being a goodwill ambassador, being a goodwill human, and act with a level of high consciousness can change the whole game. So it's a paradigm shift in education to give all the informal education sort of skills a room to shine, to survive and navigate smartly through the obstacles.
Yeah, and just to add to that, Larissa, I wanted to talk about unconscious bias and stereotyped formed through the media. So, we know very well that stereotypes are formed very early on, when children are even at the age of 5, as early as 5, and there's a very strong echo that I hope everyone hears me. Okay, shall I just continue? Yeah.
I can hear you. It's faint, but we can hear you.
So I wanted just to add that education is also how we use the media. And here, every woman in business, and particularly those in marketing, advertising, or who work for the global companies who are the biggest advertisers in the world, we have a role to play in how we manage advertising to children. We have a role to play in every single advertisement that our brands put out there that stereotype against women and girls. Or make girls feel that they are not as capable to succeed as men or boys. And I think this is another area that can sometimes be overlooked, but I think it's pretty important, and it can help us overcome unconscious bias in work that happens in the future in workplaces, etc.
There's one thing I forgot that I must add. We women that speak around the world, it is so important that when we use quotes, that we are quoting females. So many times I'm at an event where there's a speaker and every quote is a male quote. And I go up at the end, especially to women, and I point that out to them. And they say, oh my God, I never even noticed that. And I think it's a really important issue for us to make sure that when we use quotes, that we use female quotes. Of course, we can quote men too, but it's really important to focus on women and what we have to say.
No, absolutely, Francesca. And if you Google on YouTube the video about women inventors, you will see they ask many young girls to name an inventor, and they name, Alexander Graham Bell and Leonardo da Vinci, but then they're asked to name a woman inventor, and they're all blank. Not even Marie Curie could they name, and yet at the end of the video it flashes through the many inventions of women. Sorry. Excuse me. But sorry, Francesca. I got a tickle in my throat. But we have one more question, and it is for Irene. Irene, it is so encouraging to hear of the new leadership model, combining mind and heart. Have you experienced this model gaining momentum among corporations, and in what countries specifically?
Oh, great question. It's always good to show examples and to speak of realities and not just dreams. The answer is yes, I'm experiencing it for long. To start with, I would invite the audience to look for the B Corp movement, the B corporations. It's already there for many, many years, and B corporations are certified to comply with all kinds of social, environmental goodness, along with benefits as companies. So that's one hint. And I have maybe a couple of quick examples of how can a corporate be profitable and caring at the same time. A first example that comes to my mind is from the president of Danone, the big yogurt and lactics corporation. I think his name is Emmanuel Faber. He is known for having taken decisions such as cutting his salary quite strongly, just declaring that he doesn't need so much money, but at the same time, he is promoting social impact production of their products in Africa and in other places, so supporting communities, and that's a big corporation doing that. But another example would be also a big company, Michelin, the one building tires, for cars, Michelin, where they are working very strongly on empowering their people and really working on having people in their teams that know what to do, that are autonomous, that can propose, that can co-create. And so they are working also on those new examples of leadership. And of course, we would find examples of these leading both with the heart and the mind in some of the new politicians, the female politicians, as Francesca was mentioning earlier, that have led this crisis in new ways. And I could go on and on with more examples. It's happening. The transformation is here, and we are being part of it. So be positive, because it's happening.
Thank you. I know, Francesca, on my grateful list right now, I gotta say I'm grateful for my mother, who smuggled me in a cup of hot tea when she was struggling.
And by the way, I didn't mean that you couldn't be grateful for the same thing every day. You just can't use it in your grateful list.
Thank you. I'm going to try it, actually. No repeats the entire 30 days. So that will be a lot of fun, and I think a real challenge. But ladies, we have had a wonderful afternoon together for sure. I think we've really re-strategized and hacked apart many of the problems that we're facing and proposed many interesting solutions. And for sure, I think we've given our BPW sisters a lot to think about. As we close out today, do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our sisters? So let's start with you, Natasha. Maybe we can go in order of our speaking order today. So,
just a very quick comment, of course, to say thank you to everybody for staying with us for all this time, for the really interesting questions. I think that the fact that all of us on the panel, but also all the people posing the questions, seem to be sort of moving in the same direction and having the same thought processes and concerns, I think shows that things are indeed changing, as Irene said, and that we need to be part of that change. As cheesy as that might sound, women are more than 50% of the population, so we have the critical mass to change things in a positive way, and we just need to keep focusing on that to make change happen, and to make change happen in all parts of the world, which is something that I think really came through today's conversation. That the fact that there are such severe challenges is because some countries are facing an unfair share of those challenges, and some women and the women in those countries. So we need to be part of the change, not just in our own country, but in the world as a whole. So I hope to have ongoing discussions with BPW and to have the chance to connect online again, and hopefully next year we'll be able to see each other actually in person, hopefully next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Natasha. Irene?
Yes, thank you, Larissa. Well, first of all, to the audience, we were not able to see you, but I think we were able to feel you through your questions, and the warmth came through the screen. Thank you for being here. And what I want to say is that the transformation is happening, the change in leadership is happening, and it's happening for good, and you are part of it. It's possible. Believe me, it's possible to lead with our smartness and with our empathy. We can integrate both things, and the world is experiencing a shift towards the energy of the heart, and we are part of this, of building this balance. So don't be afraid to stand out and to lead differently from what we know. And we need you all there doing that. And other than that, thanks to the organization and of course to the wonderful co-speakers and the moderator. It was wonderful to be here today with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi.
I will say upskill and reskill yourself, learn and unlearn, inspire and aspire, distract the fear around you and navigate smartly within it. Take it as a driver to you. You are stronger than you imagined. So play on the strengths embedded in your tiny cells, and you are already inherited those traits of wisdom and love and strength. Make a self-love journal next to you and next to your put it on the bedside. Write every day in it. Before you sleep, just read the line you wrote it for yourself the night before, and at the morning just write another line of self-love, how you're going to achieve it. Affirm it yourself every day that you are great and the sky is not your limit, your mind is your limit. And with this essence of this mindset, there is no limit. The universe will serve you. I'm assuring you, it will serve you and it will serve your dreams.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Francesca?
Well, I do want to thank everyone. I think this was an extraordinary day, and I'm so happy to have participated here. I'd like to just remind you of my butterfly story. Sometimes when we think that we are experiencing fear and we have a nervousness in our stomach, and sometimes it feels like butterflies, those butterflies are there to remind you about your beauty. They're there because they're beautiful and they've got this brilliance. And they're just demonstrating to you that you have brilliance and that you have beauty. And the reason why you are experiencing this kind of a feeling is because you're so excited to take this next step. So it's not anxiety, it's excitement. So I challenge you to take those next steps, one step at a time, but take them. Do an ask today. Ask someone for something that you're afraid to ask for. If you get a no, well, you haven't asked the right person. Ask another one until you get your yes. So be strong, stand in your power. You have so much power than you think you have to do so many extraordinary things for you, for all of us, and for the world. So let's make this the kind of world we all want to live in. And don't forget to support every woman in your life in some way. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. And my friend Noha, certainly last but certainly not least, your thoughts.
For me, thank you very much, everyone. This has been an incredible discussion. I really enjoyed it and wonderful to be able to contribute. And to the women out there, I just want to say that you are much more powerful than you know it, and continue to power ahead in your journeys, wherever they may be. We are all powerful agents of change. This is our responsibility right now, and we must do it, and we must take accountability and responsibility for it. There is no one better than women with all our characteristics, traits, and uniqueness to drive the transformation that is required to make this world better and equal and more just. So let's do it. The time is now.
Absolutely. And I thank you all today for coming together and sharing your insights and your thoughts. I thank our sisters at BPW Cyprus, and most specifically our dear sister Mary, and to our BPW sisters around the world. Remember to continue to support one another, because when women support women, together we can be unstoppable. So thank you all, and thank you to everyone who attended today and listened to us. I hope we were able to contribute some value to your lives professionally and personally. And until we can all be together again, sharing delicious halloumi cheese in Cyprus next year, I wish you all the best and happy Thanksgiving from the United States to everyone around the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point, dear BPW sisters and friends, we come to the end of our third Mediterranean Symposium. I would like to thank every one of you for your participation in this year's event under these circumstances. I truly hope that next year we will be able to meet in person. In the meantime, let's remember that only through cooperation with understanding and compassion and in an environment of peace can we ultimately achieve our goals. Until we meet again, be well, be safe. Thank you.